Now, from making their phone calls to doing their chores, doing the jobs around the house. Do they have jobs around the house? This is kids we're talking about. As a parent, are we constantly coddling our children?
Joining us to discuss now, our mother of 5. We've got to throw it in there. Not the fact she's a barrister and all that kind of stuff. Aileen, Hickie, father of 2, Simon, Tierney, and psychotherapist Joanna Fortune. Thank you all so much for being here.
Morning.
We really appreciate it. I'm not letting the mother of 5 talk straight away because she hasn't done a coddle ever in her entire life yet.
Also, if I start now, I won't finish.
She won't finish. But Joanna, what is coddling? What does that mean?
Coddling is really a word to describe when you've crossed the line. You're not just being a parental buffer, to protect your children from newness when they're young, but you forget to step away. And what you end up doing is running interference on every aspect of their life. So you're rescuing them from every stress, you're rescuing them from every little fallout they might have with friends. If you feel you're like a frequent flyer, you're always in talking to the teacher and you're always in doing something and you're always calling the friends, parents, and you're always trying to organise everything for them. And every time your child comes home and they're a little bit upset or they've had a tough day or they're disappointed they didn't get the lead in the school play. And if your instinct is, I'll call the drama teacher and I'll sort that out, you're a coddler.
OK, we want to hear from you.
I don't even have kids and I feel like a coddler now. I'm like, yeah.
0896 111. Let us know what you would do in this situation. Aileen, like you do have 5 kids between 17 and 24.
Yeah.
So you've been through this, or are you still coddling the children?
So I'm trying not to coddle. I have made all the coddling mistakes that were available to be made. I still have adult children, as in 22, 23, who would ask me to make a phone call to get their hair cut or a doctor's appointment.
Right, they call you up asking.
Yeah, I even had one recently who, in a restaurant, asked me would I ask for a glass of water for her, and she's 24.
Oh,
right.
So I have made...
You're a card-carrying member of the coddling
member. Now, having that
community.
said, I do know how damaging it can be and how wrong it can be. So, there's a big difference between minding your children and coddling your children. And, I think what coddling essentially, brings in is kind of all those words: helicopter parenting, micromanaging, over-controlling, overprotective. I actually hate being judgy about any kind of parenting because I think it's difficult enough to be a parent, and it's okay to be a parent at every level. And, it's different strokes for different folks and all the rest of it. But I think what you have to realise is there comes a point where, first of all, what you need to do in your head is you should never do anything for your child that they can do for themselves. Now, sometimes you're about to rush out the door and your 3-year-old can't tie their laces and you're going to end up tying their laces for them because it's a time factor and you can do it faster, but you shouldn't, because actually what it can lead, it can be damaging because it can actually, damage their self-image. Obviously, we bring them up to be independent and that takes away from their independence. And, also, I suppose, there's a big difference between trying not to let your kids be disappointed and building resilience. And, and again, like Joanna said there, I mean, I know parents whose kids didn't get on a swim team or a football team or into the school play, and they're down at the school door banging away at the swim coach or the football coach. And, those kids will never learn, resilience if you're constantly doing that. If
you're doing that for them,
listen,
of course.
I've seen 7-year-olds showing up at the school with a 3D project. Now, we all know they didn't do the 3D project with little twinkling lights inside it and electrics, So, I don't know how that works and how they think anyone's going to believe that.
I'd love to hear from people at home. Can you beat Aileen Hickie having her 24-year-old daughter ask her to get a glass of water when they were in there? I'm sure she's very happy you've said that story.
Have you done the science project for the kids at the age of 7?
We'd like you can scan the QR code there to send us a message, or 0896 111 111. Because, Simon, you're in that, the preemptive danger zone, 2.5 and 4-year-old.
I'm in the trenches.
The trenches right now. Because if you're I would just think your 4-year-old is there who should be learning how to tidy up after themselves, bring their plate to the sink. But often it just takes a long time.
They throw it in the sink and it smashes.
Are you trying to instill that and go, you have to tidy up after yourself? Are you like, oh, darling, you go and play?
I do try to, but I am, the more I think about it, the more I realise I am a coddler. I'm a card-carrying coddler. I've been coddling for 5 years. The anti-coddling brigade, which I'm sure a lot of your listeners are members of, will be saying that parenting should be about giving children what they need, not what they want, right? But for me, austerity parenting. There's a bang of, like, that's the Tory government approach to parenting. There's a bang of Margaret Thatcher.
The Troika are coming back in, are they?
Like, I think, like, I'm in awe of my children. I kind of worship them, and I don't see them during the day. And when I get home from work, I just want to pick them up and hold them. I want to bring their plate to the sink. I want to do everything for them, you know? And I think when we project into the future and go, if we can look back on how we did before, are you ever going to go, I think I gave them too much affection? You know, like, if you want...
Yes, I think so.
Between affection.
100%.
There is, absolutely.
Because
and you might look back, Tommy, in years to come, and it's usually not when they're 4 and lovely and little, and they do need you so much, and that is a genuine need. They do need you to do a lot for them. It's when they're 14 or 24, and you're still doing it because actually along the way, you've denied them those opportunities to master tension-rousing experiences. And we need that. And that's just a convoluted way to say, handle disappointment, manage risk, negotiate repair when you fall out with one of your pals. You know, those little microaggressions that go on playgrounds every day.
Important to say no to the kids.
Of course it is, because no child is going to thank you for that. Just be clear about that. They're not going to say thank you so much for those boundaries. But they will thank you in how they live, because they've internalized safety and limits, and they know how to get, I'm at the line, now I need to keep myself this side of the line, not the other side. It helps them to self-regulate. And where I see it in clinical practice play out is older teenagers who are coming because they're completely overwhelmed by what arguably is a mild to moderate level stress. And they are genuinely overwhelmed, not coping, and experiencing very high anxiety in response to what is a mild to moderate everyday challenge.
So, Aileen, from your point of view, like, how do you juggle this at home, though? Do you have a good cop, a bad cop? Is it hard to try and be the one who's always the one having to say no all the time?
Well, you can both be good cops, actually, or you can both be bad cops. But, you know, I mean, I think, you know, there's a difference between austere parenting, is what you refer to there, and just, you know, trying to be a good enough parent. I mean, I have to say to myself, and I have had to say to myself with each of my children all the time, just remember, you know, they need to build their own self-esteem. They, you know, they need self-care. They need to build resilience. You know, there's a big difference again between, you know, minding them and then being entirely overprotective, over-controlling. And actually, at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is be over-perfecting, because you want your children to be perfect. They're not, and neither are you. And you want your relationship with them to be perfect, and you want all their, you know, their future to be perfect. But you can't build that without giving them the tools to deal with it. And if you take all those tools away because you're playing in the toolbox yourself, they can't build it.
Are you damned if you do and damned if you don't? Because at this stage, like, you can go back to Philip Larkin being like, they F you up, your mom and dad. Like, we're going back to the 30s there. And these days, you watch all these American TV series, and our children are becoming more Americanized. You know, they don't have the Catholic guilt that we all have and the shame we grew up with. And although it's all about my parents messed me up and they're going to therapists. Like, do you ever think about that, Simon, that you're like, I don't know what I can do
You mentioned TV there, right? We're all obsessed with true crime documentaries at the moment. You watch a true crime documentary about someone who's done some terrible crime, right? They always go, oh, he's from a broken home, his parents neglected him. They never go, his parents coddled him. That guy who's doing 15 years to life, his parents gave him too much affection. They gave him everything he wants. They didn't.
Sometimes the mother, actually, sometimes the mother have over-coddled the men.
And actually,
I'm not joking.
I would say that, you know, in 20 or 30 years' time, there'll be children lying on psychologist couches saying, my parents overtalked me. You know, they kept on.
But there was, like, do we need, because we talk about even 80s parents, I was reading an article on this, like, we need to almost go back to that a little bit, like, let the kids go outside.
It is.
Don't watch telly all the time.
Experiences. And so often, even young children, and I work with young, right up to young adults, which is about 22, 23, so the whole spectrum. And a lot of young kids will say is, I don't want my parents to fix it. I just want them to hear me. And so often as parents, we hear our kids talking and we're immediately in with our rescue agenda, our fix or change agenda, and we're saying, I'm going to fix this, and we're saying, do you know what you're going to do? I'll do it for you. I'll do it. And the child just wants to be heard.
But
because it's easier.
Because a friend of mine,
it is easier to do it yourself.
Easier.
It is, but a friend of mine was talking about her little 4-year-old the other day, and a 5-year-old girl was excluding her, and I swear I was ready to drive down and go, what the hell do you think you're doing? Like, it's very hard in those situations.
That protective, right? It comes from the best of places. Like, coddling isn't a parental neglect by any, like, this isn't, a parent is thinking, how can I mess my child up? You know, I'll do too much for them. That doesn't happen. It comes from a very well-intended place. But the best thing for that little girl is to have that acceptance and empathy and go, you're upset because that's upsetting. And I'm wondering what you could do and who else is in your class that you could play with. And you empower that child to be able to handle that until it crosses a line. Because I always think if you hold in mind, follow your child's lead as much as possible. Let them make the choices, decisions, and step in and take charge when necessary and know the difference.
And actually, I think after a while, if you step in too much, they'll stop telling you things.
You're
because
absolutely right.
They now know this is her go-to. You know, if the more we tell her, the more she's going to step in. She's going to try and deal with this. My friends' parents, the school, the GAA club, and they don't want that.
I actually think that I think coddling is actually the easier thing to do. It's easier not to coddle. Like, I'll give you a concrete example. This morning, my daughter, she was putting on her Minnie Mouse dress. Halfway through putting it on, she said, "No, Daddy, I want to wear my unicorn dress." Right, it would have been, I knew that if I said no, we're halfway through the Minnie Mouse dress, that it was going to cause a tantrum, it was going to make me late to come here. But it was easier for me to coddle her and go, of course, no problem, let's take off the Minnie Mouse dress and put on the unicorn.
You're absolutely right.
I had the exact same scenario with my 24-year-old. And she's now in her unicorn dress. And I'll make an appointment with the hairdresser for her later and order her some water in the restaurant. And I've done nothing wrong.
0896 111 send us a text, scan the QR code. It sounds all so familiar, I swear to God. Aileen Hickie, of course, CEO of Parent Line and mother of 5, son Tierney, broadcaster and father of 2, and psychotherapist Joanna Fortune. Thank you so much, all three. Really impressive.
Enjoyed
and
that
a bit
so
of
much.
crack as well.
Can I have some water, please, Aileen? That'd be great.